we have e-bikes.
Regarding timing, I know when we were interviewing the private security companies, there was also a timing issue with getting their staff up to speed. Some were far better than others, but most of them needed a substantial amount of time to get geared up.
Something else for Jay?
Yes, I just wanted to say, I was in the jail 2 or 3 days ago, and several of the deputies there are aware that we're hiring deputies, and we're talking about, I'd love to come down to your city and apply. So I guess the word's getting out
Anything
within
to
the
get out of
department. So
jail.
you're looking for people. That's
a true
I wasn't
statement, Mayor.
in custody at the jail. I was physically there at the jail. But anyway, the word's getting out that this opportunity in San Clemente is there. So
Yeah, I think we do a good job recruiting deputies come down. We've got 7 on training right now, all solid deputy sheriffs, so we're really excited for them to, one just got off training today, so the guys that are here now, you got a great bunch of deputies here. They know people from when they spent time in the jail, working that is, and they recruit their friends that they know they can do the job down here in a busy city like San Clemente, so we're getting some great quality deputy sheriffs.
thank you. One last question I have, and that would be for the city manager, and that would be relating to the use of our own uniformed personnel by way of park rangers, and park rangers currently don't have citation authority, I understand, or some do and some don't.
Any more questions for Captain
No,
Christian?
I don't, thank you,
I
Captain.
do, yeah.
Oh, actually, let's while he's here, let's have,
Okay, yeah. You would agree that having additional security helping you observe would be useful
objection leading.
would be useful to you.
I don't know yet, sir. I don't know. In my opinion, they're going to be calling us when things get out of hand, just like a citizen would call us.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can have directed patrol down there doing proactive patrols that we can squash the issue before it gets there. Having that additional zone with additional deputy there should help in that.
But it should help. I mean, having someone there present. Your officers are certainly not going to be there for 3 hours observing a crowd.
Well, if that's a zone, that's where the deputy should be. So whether it be North Beach, whether it be the Pier Bowl area, or even South Beach, we should have a deputy there
One deputy.
24/7. Correct.
But if there's 2 different areas, you got to choose between one, or if there's another call, they could get called away on that also, right?
It's just like any patrol zone we have now.
Yeah.
A deputy can't be in one street his entire shift, right? So he's moving from neighborhood to neighborhood as calls come out, as he's patrolling that area. So it's the same thing for North Beach and the Pier Bowl. He can go back and forth. If there's a call to Pier, obviously North Beach will be not patrolled at that time, right, while he's handling a call to Pier. But that doesn't mean that if a call comes out, somebody from another area can't come down and handle that call.
Would those people also go out to other calls if needed?
Yes.
In the city? So they abandoned both parts of the beach?
It depends on the call. I mean, if
Yeah.
we have a call that takes 10 deputies, we'll be calling deputies from Dana Point or San Juan Capistrano to come out and help as well.
Okay, yeah.
Well, yeah,
Councilor Love.
I do have a question and just a quick comment. We, not me, but, no, yeah, me kind of. We are putting the chief in a very difficult position talking about this. I can tell you as an officer and getting the same questions, I would have a very difficult time ever saying, oh, gee, yes, we can't patrol you safely. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Of course they can patrol us safely, but there is just a commonality in police work. And here's the question I will ask, and I hope we're good, Chief, because you know that, okay. So we have our patrol area down by the beach, and they're working it, and they're doing a good job, and I expect to see a significant decrease in crime once we get that car in. There's no doubt about that. But there's a priority 1 call in Talega that a man with a gun is outside the house, and there's no other car to deploy to it. Who are they going to deploy?
Any available resource that we have. Yeah, and that's a call that I'm talking about. It's going to take more than 1 deputy to handle that call.
It's just a math thing, and as soon as they're done, they will be back. But there is a gap there, and it's any police department, any city, anywhere, no matter how many police officers.
That's
you have.
totally correct.
Okay. That's
Okay.
it.
Any other questions for Captain Christian?
Just a quick question, and this may be more general. Where do we stand in San Clemente in terms of the amount of sheriffs that we have per population as compared to other cities?
We're working on that model as a department to it's called the patrol allocation model, that we're looking at that. It used to be based on population. It's no longer based on population. It's based on work product. So I don't have the answer for that, but we're working on that, and I'll get you that answer.
Thank you.
Okay. And any other questions?
Yeah, I just had a question. I'm done. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you,
Christian.
Captain Christian. Appreciate that.
For the city manager, I just wanted to ask, because we're talking budget, the amount of money that it would take to have our park rangers geared up to have a uniform presence and citation authority, from a time-wise and a money-wise, how does that stack up with the recommendation in this motion is to put $700,000 into a security contract?
I have not run an analysis of what, for instance, it would cost us to have four park rangers, if you will, available 24 hour, or on two 12-hour, two
everyone
groups
hear?
of two for 12-hour shifts. I have not run that model. I could do that pretty quickly. It would probably be a slightly different park ranger than what we've hired in the past. We've kind of had this conversation. Our park rangers right now have been a little bit more geared towards being ambassadors. They open the restrooms. They again, though, would be another set of eyes. They would be able to provide feedback to the sheriffs and whatnot, so they could play a similar role as the private security, but it would take some time to get them hired. It usually takes a few months for us to get a new person hired and in our system. It would take a little while to get geared up. But that's certainly another option that needs to be looked at as we go forward. It's certainly an
I
option.
thought we already had something in place there for expanding the role of park rangers and also code compliance.
We do. We have money in the budget for two additional park rangers. That was going to be a final question, is do we want to keep that money in the budget and start bringing up some new park rangers, or do you want to use those resources to offset some of the costs of either the sheriffs or of the private security? That'll certainly be one of the follow-up questions as we start looking at the funding for all of this type of safety
Is that a question for
services.
today or for down the road?
It would be great to get some direction for today, but it doesn't have to be exact. I think we
Can I
can come back
ask
to
a
you.
quick question on this exact topic? So the new, or the proposed park ranger model, is that based on the salary that you're paying them now?
That is correct.
Okay,
And-
okay,
Yes, sorry.
no, I interrupted you, I'm sorry. You're not going to get people to do what Mayor Pro Tem is suggesting. I think we do need to change the model, absolutely, and if we do that, and we'll get what we pay for.
You'll be paying more for the ranger.
We
to do the
would
same
need to
job.
pay substantially more for somebody to come down here to actually do enforcement. And I think that's a great model, and I think we ought to pursue that. In the meantime, again, the security is a bridge while we're putting that together.
Let me ask you a question of the maker of the motion. The timeframe that you envision this contract going into place.
I have to interrupt you first. Before we get into more discussion on the motion, do we have any questions of staff? Because I want to close the public hearing before we get into further
No,
discussion.
I don't.
And
And we do have one speaker comment.
do you have one speaker card? And City Attorney, because we reopen this, we will hear the comment? Okay. Is it concerned citizen?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem Noblock, why are you so adverse to a temporary security company coming in and providing us with some safety until the sheriff can handle it? That's all we're asking. It's not a permanent thing. It's just a stopgap until the sheriff can get the manpower he needs. That's all we're asking you for. And the other thing that I want to note is that I have been to several council meetings where a term point of privilege has been used for certain residents, like Tim Brown, to come up out of order. But I have also been to several meetings where a resident has come up after you close the public hearing. Now, you just reopened this one, but no consideration has ever been given to Mr. Washington to reopen a public hearing for his comments, ever. And I'm concerned about that. Thank you.
Okay, and that's the only public comment we got in. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we will restart discussion on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question, Victor, to the maker of the motion, the transition, my preference would be to have our people with citation authority and or arrest authority do the policing that we all need. The question is, for you is, how do you envision the transition from the model that the city manager described, where our rangers, granted, will cost more, but they have citation authority and they have some real obligations to our community? What kind of transition time frame are you envisioning? Because if we had a contract
Yeah.
for these people, it would be a year long,
Well-
and that's a long transition.
Well, first of all, the budget item would be for a year. It doesn't have to be fully funded.
That's where I'm getting to, yeah.
For a year. We could end that under the terms that we discussed.
My question would be, who has that authority? Would it be a council decision on hours and
Yeah.
days, or would it be the city we authorizing the city manager to marshal those times?
Well, one of the parts of this motion is to create a contract. That contract would say it would be subject to, I think we had guaranteed maybe 3 months.
So the
and
details
thereafter,
still has to be
The
worked out.
details have to be worked out. They would be put in a contract. I think it's going to take at least 6 months before we could even find the appropriate staff, train them, and get them able to write citations. This company, we know, has indicated to us they could probably do it in 30-plus days, which is still a long time, but it's because of our delay that all this wasn't done 2 months ago. I'd like to see us fund this, do the transition, see if it works, see if we can come up with the appropriate staff. Recruiting for those positions will be a difficult thing too, but we can try it. I think we've got to look at that option. I agree with you. I know you've always been on that. I'm not fixed on having private security forever. I think that we need, and I think it would be a better option to have our own trained staff, but we're not going to get that in the time frame that our citizens need to address the ongoing criminal activity that's happening every day.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Yes, Councilmember Enmeyer.
What happened was an incredibly unfortunate event. This is not indicative of who we are as a town. I don't think it's indicative of the nature of our city either. There are a lot of things at play with what happened a week and a half ago. Underage drinking, mob mentality, bystander effect, social media, all of these things are wrapping together and becoming a part of a national news story. Sometimes when these events happen, we look at them and say, this is who we are, and we can only fix this if we do this one thing. Sometimes, when we take a pause and take a breath, we realize that the immediate action that we want to take isn't necessarily the best long-term solution. I would be in favor of a longer-term solution for our town. That we take money that might be used, that is being proposed for a short-term solution now, and instead apply that to something that has a more lasting effect.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, final comment by me here is, Victor, I mean, powerful comments. I can't really disagree with the argument you're making. You too, Councilmember Loeffler. I guess I agree with some of the other comments, though. I mean, I just fundamentally believe that we should have people that actually have authority to enforce our laws and codes. I think we should have people who answer to our city manager and not some private company that are doing this work. That's what I believe is the more effective long-term solution. So, as persuasive as you were, it's not something I can support because Even on a temporary basis, I think it sets a poor precedent. And again, I mean, it's easy to think of solutions that may seem good in the short term, but there's a reason that other cities aren't doing this. There's a reason that this isn't incredibly popular across other cities and particularly beach cities. And instead, the cities are relying on their own employees that have code enforcement authority and have law enforcement authority to perform these really key, really I'd say number one priority functions, right? Everything comes back to public safety of our community, and it certainly is a huge priority for this entire council. We unanimously voted to put over $1 million into getting more deputies. Like, no cities are doing that. So I'm proud of us for doing that. We have more challenges, but this isn't a silver bullet situation that can be solved by private security, and I don't want to lead us down that road to believe we can do that. So even with those strong arguments, I can't support it, but I appreciate it.
I'd like to just respond to a couple things. The fact that no other city is doing this, actually what we learned from our interviews, that almost every other city is doing the private security to supplement.
I haven't heard that. Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you.
I know
right now.
Oceanside's not doing it because that's funded through a private group, not through the city.
But other cities are doing it up and down the state. So, in fact, many of the companies that we interviewed were doing multiple municipalities, cities, airports. I mean, the solution. I mean, the one company that we're looking at has, I think, 800,000 security officers, and they're doing it mostly for governmental entities. So people are doing it as a solution. We wouldn't be alone in that. And I guess the only other thing I would say is that, it's time to act. This is the right time. I know you've been here for several years, and if there is another solution, I haven't seen that solution come forward. And so I'd be happy to entertain whatever solution that you think will fix it.
And I think the solution is our own park rangers who have not just the ability to be there and observe, but actually have authority to act and not just kick the bucket back to the sheriff's department.
Yeah, but we know it's already a 6-month project. We need something immediately, and the proposal is to put this on in the interim so that we can develop that program, whether it takes us 6 months, and I think that's pretty ambitious. It may take us longer, but we need something immediate. This is my view, and I know reasonable minds can disagree, but I think it's the right time to act on this, and I appreciate the difference of opinion, but I respect your opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's not the long-term solution. It is not. And this is a lot about timing. And, we look at the Marine situation that happened, and that just kind of reignited it. If you remember, the private security issue came up long before the Marine issue did. It was because of several things happening in town. Sure. Wasn't the Marine thing. The Marine thing just put a magnifying glass on it. But I agree, it's not the long term, and I think the long term is our own people doing it. I do think that's the long term, along with, maybe adding more sheriffs. That is the long term. But we've got the summer starting now, and I just think that any gap that we can fill while we're figuring the rest of that out is not bad money spent. That's all.
I appreciate that.
I agree. I agree with the long-term solution. This is not it, but it might be a short-term Band-Aid.
Appreciate that. Any other discussion?
I would just say, I think Steve is on the right track with creating this force, but I think it is going to take a long time to do that. And so I would, ask that, you consider in the short term doing this for the community that needs it.
Well, I would respond to that, Victor, by saying that I agree that we need effective law enforcement. We're getting it in North Beach. It's been happening. One thing that does concern me from the information we have tonight is the time frame within which the sheriff deputies can come online. It's going to take a while. We don't know how long, but it's going to take a while. But I really think, as several of my colleagues have said, the long-term solution is to have our people, sheriff deputy, park rangers, code enforcement, doing the job that they're hired to do. Until then, there's a need. No question about that. So what I would what I would suggest, as perhaps as a friendly amendment, rather than having a one-year, $700,000 contract, and, because, you know, when you allocate funds, those funds tend to get spent. If you have a shorter time frame, they tend to, the solution tends to happen within that time frame. Rather than a 12-month, $700,000. And I know there's a transition time to begin to implement the ideas that our city manager has. I could live with a shorter term, maybe 6-month, at $350,000 to get someone on the ground working until the transition can occur.
I would accept that. It's a friendly amendment.
Okay?
Okay, the friendly amendment, is everyone clear on the motion then? It looks like it's a motion for a 6-month contract up to $350,000, which actually could be shortened anyway at some
Could
point, I
be,
guess,
yeah,
too.
yeah.
And to have that brought back,
I would just clarify, I think that was to amend the budget that's being proposed to include the
Exactly.
$350,000 and to come back with
yeah.
a 6-month contract.
that's why I wanted it clarified, yes, because
That's
we had a lot of
exactly our
discussion.
thoughts.
Because we are in the budget discussion. Okay, so is everyone clear on the motion?
Yes, a quick question on the friendly amendment. When that comes back, is there, let's say, at the end of summer, we want to do this for 3 months and we're good? Is that a possibility with this contract? Is it at will, or are we tied in for 6 months?
Yeah, so that contract that we had with, that was presented to the city council does have a termination clause. So, and I believe it was 30 days. The other thing I wanted to point out is that I'm already working with Adam on the long-term solution. We've been looking forward, you know, already, but it is going to take some time. But we agree with the council. The long-term solution is having our people properly trained, guided by us, taking care of this problem, but it's just going to take a little bit of time to implement.
Can I ask a quick question of city manager? Is there a way maybe you might want to get some of the expertise and some input from the Public Safety Committee? You've got several members on there that can help you maybe formulate that, and maybe we should send this project to them also, just to help the city manager out. It's kind of an emergency situation. I know that they already know a lot about best practices. I know LA County is, Nick Burkute is still here, retired LA County sheriff, and they actually worked with civilian-type security companies that did a lot of security company within the county of LA. I know he knows a lot about best practices, and I'd like to see him get the input into the
Then
city
provide
manager.
the input to decide whether we continue, extend.
Well, more like
expand.
how to build the park ranger program. I think, you know, Nick knows a lot about
I'm
civilian.
saying in addition to that, have the Public Safety Committee provide input and weigh in on the efficacy.
We're getting a little sideways here from our items, so I just want, I think that can be discussed at a later point.
Okay.
Let's not cloud the issue. We have a motion on the table about our budget. And we can get to that. I think it's a valid point, Rick, but we're getting distracted here. Is everyone clear on the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah?
I call the
Okay.
question.
Councilmember Enmeyer.
Aye.
Councilmember, what are your name now? What's your name now? Karen's husband. You still here?
Mr. Karen's husband.
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember Cabral.
Aye.
And Mayor Pro Tem is an aye. I'm a no, but that motion passes. Congratulations. And,
Back to the
okay.
consent calendar.
Well, we still have to vote on the budget. Yes, let's get back to the budget.
Minor thing.
Do we have any, let's see here, wait, yep. Nope. We're in the public hearing. We did close the public hearing again, so we can now have discussion on the budget and to vote on the budget, okay. Is there any further discussion, or someone want to make a motion?
I move that we approve the budget at the fund level for the city of San Clemente for the 2023-24 fiscal year and the commitment of fund balance.
Second.
And does that encompass the last motion? City Attorney, or do we need to say that?
I would clarify that encompasses the amendment that was made by the last motion.
Which encompasses the amendment made by the last motion.
Okay, and the motion is Enmeyer, second is Noblock. All in favor? Aye. And it is unanimous.
Okay, ready for consent? Do you want to take a break?
Yes, I
Okay.
guess we are on the consent now, yes.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, staff has a couple of requests. If we could continue item I on the consent agenda so that we can better inform the city council of some of the items on the M2 7-year capital improvement program. And item N, there was direction for the consultant for Abound Foods or Food Abound. I get that backwards. I think it's Abound Food. To speak with a couple of the council members that had concerns. I know they had an opportunity to speak with one of them. I don't know if they've had an opportunity to speak with Councilmember Cabral. There was an attempt. So if that has not happened, we would ask that that be continued for that consideration. Again, both of those at the discretion of the city council.
Do we have agreement to continue I and N from the consent calendar? Is there a motion to that effect?
I'd move.
Okay, and any second?
I'll second.
Okay, and motion is Corral, second is Enmeyer. All in favor? Aye. And just to let you know, if you are here to speak on those items, you can still give comments. I would ask that you wait until it comes back, just because it'll be more effective when you comment, when we're actually going to be discussing the item, but you still are able, since it was on the agenda, to comment today if you would like. Do any council member, well, first do we ask the public?
We do have two items from the public, pulled by the public, which happen to be items 7I and 7N.
Oh, okay.
So Amanda Q pulled item 7I, and she did mention, she did mention that she would like to speak, so just give us one moment. And then 7N, Mike Larakos
Wait,
and.
before we
sorry.
comment on that, though, let's have all the items pulled.
Yes,
Sorry,
exactly.
So
Yep.
just, if I may interrupt, Mr. Mayor, as a technical matter, those matters have been continued by the council, so they are no longer on the agenda, which raises a question in my mind as to the appropriateness of accepting public comment, since they're not on the agenda anymore.
Well, then can we pause, can we change our motion to allow for public comment and then?
It would be
move
better
back
if you reconsidered
Rescind the prior
and
motion.
reconsidered, and then during the reconsideration, you can take public comment and then
Okay,
vote to
do we have a motion to reconsider? We just passed.
Or Amanda could delay the next time, and then we wouldn't need to.
Okay, we'll let her make that choice.
Well,
Do we
we-
have a motion to reconsider and during the reconsideration, allow comments?
That would be my motion, because we actually have two different items, two different people that probably want to speak.
Any second? Is there a second on allowing that reconsideration? Okay, I will second that. Councilmember Enmeyer?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
Aye.
okay.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. So as we're reconsidering whether to postpone these items, we will allow public comment on those items.
Okay, and are there any other items on the consent calendar that council would like to pull?
Should we do these first two items first?
Yeah, we should.
Okay, so then let's do this then.
I'll
Well,
move the balance unless the council members have anything they want to pull.
Oh, I want to pull G.
hold on, city attorney.
My recommendation would be to state what else you want pulled, and then hold off on moving the consent calendar till we have reconsidered whether the other items are being continued.
All right, any other items to be pulled by the public?
No, just.
Okay,
just
how about
N and
council?
I.
G.
G. Any other items? Okay, did we have a motion to move the balance?
Move the balance.
So if you could, my recommendation would be to not move the balance, but to take public comment, and then hear your motion for reconsideration on I and N being continued. Because right now, we don't know what the balance is.
They're back
okay,
on the
okay.
agenda because we rescinded the.
Okay.
Correct. Well, it's pending, it's in limbo.
Okay, while we're reconsidering, so we do have, okay, so G and I are, I'm sorry, we have I and N that are pulled, so we'll hear comments on those as we're reconsidering.
Correct, and G was pulled by a council member, so we can,
We'll start with I and N.
okay, so for item 7I, Amanda Q.
I worked with Bonnie Barnes in collaboration with this. Next slide, please. When I saw this on the agenda, I'm really concerned regarding a couple of things. And one of the solutions is improving the Ridgeline service and trail system. At the Leadership Academy, I received a trail and bikeway map, and so the city is advertising these trails. So there are certain solutions here that you could look over, but it's increasing the width of the roadway along the ridge line. There is an easement agreement, which mandates the easement to be 16 feet, and some places it's 12 feet. I think it's imperative to grade and repave the roadway for the safety and possible bike lanes. So in lieu of using Measure M2 funds for like building a tunnel under I-5, then this could be done. Next slide, please. Also, repair and renovate entry access ways for the Ridgeline roadway, pave and widen 1/2 mile segment of the trail system adjacent to the Sea Ridge Estates, install bike lanes. So there's various concerns there. Also, the fire zone maintenance, which is in accordance to PCR 429, which requires owners, operators, agencies of structures located in the fire-prone areas to maintain 100-foot defensible fire zones. And going into this dry season, we need to really be thinking about safety in that areas. Next slide, please. Here is a project that came up in the Measure M2 funds that it could spend up to $2.69 million regarding Bonita Pico Bicycle Path Phase 2 lanes, and I'm all for safety. However, next slide, please. We do have bike lanes on Bonita Pico heading eastbound and westbound. Next slide, please. And here is the another $17 million plan to construct a tunnel under Freeway I-5 to connect Bonita Pico Bicycle Path Project Phases 1 and 2. Why? How did this ever come into this? I have no idea. This should have never been on there. Next slide, please. We have an existing bike lane under the I-5 heading westbound. Next slide. Then we have an existing bike lane heading eastbound under the I-5 freeway, and I just don't understand why that is. Another solution, next slide, please, would be the parking lot at North Beach. And there is a resolution that gives one option for the
Sorry, you're out of time. Appreciate
and
that.
it's the public parking.
And we'll also hear public comment on item N, or
7 if the
N.
speakers are here. Mike Larakos, if you would like to speak, and Nick Bercuda, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening, staff as well. I wanted to take a moment, first of all, to thank the Public Safety Committee as well as council members and staff for supporting the Abound Food Care Emergency Meal Program. I wanted to issue assurances of how the program works, especially in lieu of what I watched with the budget. There is no cost to the city for this. This is a value add for residents. This is governance at its very best, first of all. Secondly, these meals will be available for the city to implement into their emergency plan when a disaster hits, God forbid. In the event that a disaster does not hit, those meals are available for the city to do what they want in terms of where those meals go. The only stipulation is that they go to nonprofits to continue the integrity of the process, meaning much of the food that is used to produce those meals was donated by manufacturers, processors, distributors, tax deduction was taken, needs to go to nonprofits. It can be for whatever purpose the city chooses. It can even go outside the city. So I wanted to identify for everyone that the forethought of the Public Safety Committee on this matter is impressive. We don't see it. I work with cities up and down the state, all over the country. It's rare to find cities that identify the way this program works, the benefit and value to residents, and I wanted to compliment as well. And I also wanted to identify there is a short time frame remaining. I would respectfully hope we can keep this on the agenda tonight and vote on this, or else we run the risk of losing that opportunity because of the conditions put forth on these funds, which are federal funds earmarked for Orange County. Thank you very much.
Nick Bercuda.
I have to extend this a little bit. Thank you for allowing me to speak. This is on this Abound Food Care project that the Public Safety Committee, which I'm a member of, has adopted, and I take it as a personal project because I found it through a press release from the county. They were given a grant because of a secondary effect of COVID, the pandemic. They found that food insecurity was not being addressed. Not Meals on Wheels or the homeless. We're talking about general population. What happens when we have a general disaster and there's no logistics, no trucks going to the supermarkets? How do we get food to our citizens? As Councilman Cabral says, we have a duty to protect. This is an opportunity that is unusual. I've been into disaster preparedness for over 50 years, and I've never seen anything like this before. And I investigated, I looked at it, and in fact, the Public Safety Committee recommended it. And it's gotten this far, and I don't want it to disappear because we're right at the 11th hour, and it needs to be approved tonight. And I urge you to adopt it. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Is there room for council comments on any of these items?
Well, so what we're doing is still reconsidering whether we're going to postpone and table these items until the next meeting. Do we have any? We voted to do that before, but we're reconsidering it now. Do we have any adjustments on that motion?
No, I would raise a point of order because, as I understand, this item was put on the agenda not by you and not by the city manager. So I don't know how it got on the agenda. And so I'd like to know how it got on the agenda without anybody that can put it on the agenda.
I've got to take responsibility for that. Again, I think it was a staff decision, and any decision by staff, I've got to take responsibility for that. I thought that there had been communication with both of the council members to which, and I failed to communicate with Councilmember Cabral. And I thought they had talked with both of the council members, so I've got to take responsibility for that.
But we did, I think we talked about it earlier, we did as a council agree to rehear it, right? We didn't, we continued it before, so your question is, how did it get on this agenda versus
Yes.
a future agenda?
Yes.
Okay. And that's the explanation.
I had one question on that. There's mentioned in the comments that there is some urgency in this matter. Is this something that needs to be acted on now as opposed to in 2 weeks?
I can't speak to that. I don't know their timing. I can't speak to that. I don't know.
I just think it's highly irregular that an item that's not been put on properly is put on the agenda, and I object to it being considered.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't think it was put on, well, I can't speak to what the city manager did. I know I wasn't involved in it, but
Yeah.
I do know we were going to rehear it, right? So it's not like it just didn't come, it came out of nowhere. You're just objecting to it being the timing of it, I guess, but.
I'm objecting to the timing because I think what we talked about is that there would be some kind of communication with us prior to it being put on the agenda and discussion about it, and that hasn't happened. So I may be perfectly, this may be a good project. I don't know. I think I had a lot of questions last time. And I still have the same number of questions about the program.
And one of the questions you had was that, was whether the city had a say in what happened to the food that got rotated out of this storage area. We heard the speaker say that the city gets to have control of that. City manager, the city attorney, perhaps, is that what you recall from the agreement? Is that we have the ability to direct where the food goes?
I had a phone call with the speaker today, and he indicated to me that the city would be able to direct the food in any direction we wanted. I don't know that to be the case by the contract. What I was told is that we could direct where the food goes.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion and reconsideration? Right now, our motion was to table both I and N. Would someone like to modify that motion?
Well, again, so there's no discussion on this item? Is that what you're?
Well,
Because you voted to take it off the agenda, but it was just a motion, and then a vote was taken, but there was no discussion on
we
it.
won't have discussion, before we get into discussion, we have to decide whether we're going to table it or not. If we're going to table it, we're not going to discuss it.
Okay.
So the first motion is back to our original motion with the request of the city manager about tabling the items. How about if we do this? Does anyone have a motion to table item N?
I'll move that we table item N.
Okay, and a second?
Yes.
Okay, so motion is Enmeyer, second is Cabral. All in favor of tabling motion, or item N?
Under the motion, to discuss the motion, I understand item N, which is the food care, right?
No.
No.
Oh, I'm getting I and N mixed up, excuse me.
In his food, in his.
I'm sorry, I messed that up. It's a I I'm talking about. I is the one we agree on. Okay, so clarify the motion. It's about I, M2 funds. Motion is, thank you for the clarification.
To pull item I, or
Okay,
to table. item
okay. I, and Cabral was the second on that. Sorry, I misstated it. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we're I for I. Okay, so we're tabling I for sure. Any discussion on tabling item N? This is your chance to.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's been some confusion on this. Not only was this put forth by with a recommendation by the Public Safety Committee, it was actually passed by council, I believe. Didn't it get passed, and then it got sent forward for now, well, what's the final thing going to be? And I do understand Council Member Cabral's concerns, because when it came out of the Public Safety Committee and Mike, explained it, it was that we would have control of where we send the food. It could be a school, it could be any foundation, it could be a nonprofit that works with Marines, it could be a nonprofit that works with seniors, anything. And I thought that was a good idea, that we should have some say in that when they rotate the food. Now, what Councilmember Cabral's concern was, in the contract that they have here, it says licensee, which is the Bound Food, will be solely responsible for managing and distributing the meals pursuant to its own policies and procedures, with city having no involvement. I'm not sure where that came from. I don't think that came from a Bound Food. I could be wrong, we could ask. But I think with a simple changing of some words, like in concert with or whatever, we would have what we needed. And the bottom line is, I just don't see the downside for this. It's emergency food. I was working during the 1992 earthquake in Los Angeles, and when the freeways went, we didn't have food for the people were there. We didn't have even food for the first responders there. It was a huge problem. And I just do not see the downside of this whatsoever. Again, I know Councilmember Cabral's concerns, and he hasn't had the opportunity to have the discussion. I do respect that. But I also respect the fact that this is, again, it's something for the city, it's at no cost to the city, and also we have an out. There's a 60-day, if we don't like this, for whatever reason, without cause, we give them notice, and in 60 days, it's gone, if we don't like the way it's running.
City Attorney, is it possible to approve this conditional on language in the contract that allows for the city's involvement in the distribution of the food?
Yes.
Okay, and would we have to give you the specific language now, or is it enough to?
No, you could just give me the general direction and I could work to craft it.
Okay. So, given the timing, we can do that and address that issue, but still potentially pass this. Okay. And any other discussion on the item?
Yeah, Mike, I share the comments on Section E. Section E is completely contrary to what we heard from the testimony tonight. So I think with the modification of the city concurrently or in consultation approving the distribution, I can be supportive. I think time is important because I understand there's a grant pending to fund this operation. If it's not done by the end of the month, we waive it. So
Right.
I wouldn't want to table it. If we did anything, we'd need to bring it back at the next meeting, but I'm prepared to support it now.
Okay. Any other discussion on this item?
With that modification of paragraph E.
Does anyone want to make a motion then?
No, I still have discussion. I'd actually like, there's other provisions in the contract I'd like to go through, because I think there's other changes that need to be made. I haven't had time to fully review it, but I'm going to try as quickly as I can, because there was several other provisions related to the location of the
Storage container?
storage container, yeah, that I had concerns with.
Sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but Mr. Mayor, it's not really appropriate to discuss an item with it being on consent. So it sounds like it might be more appropriate to pull it from the consent item, from the consent calendar, move the consent calendar, and then have this be an item, and then you can always continue it after, during discussion of the item.
Okay, so right now we move to only continue item I, and N was pulled by the public. So we have N and G out there. We're talking about N, so let's stick with that. So yeah, let's
Should we move the
let's
balance?
move the balance other than N and G. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to move the balance.
Okay, and there's this
Second, the balance.
motion is in Meyer, second is Noblock. All in favor? Aye. And since we're on N, let's continue with that item now. We heard a staff presentation already, so we're past that. So we're into discussion, and back to you, Victor.
Well, actually, if we're going to go back to that, can we call our witness back? I have several questions related to this item that, I mean, if I can't get them answered in the future,
Sure.
I'd like to get them answered tonight.
Sure.
And maybe I'll be fine with the program.
Okay.
Okay. The contract gives you absolute control over how to distribute the food, right?
As it's worded now, it puts the onus on us.
Yeah.
And we want to share that or provide that for the city.
Okay. What type of natural, this is one of the big things, what kind of natural disaster has been predicted for this area that you're trying to address? What's the problem you're trying to fix?
It's a great question. What
Yeah.
we're looking at is a disaster, an emergency that limits access to food. So it could be the dreaded earthquake that we all expect at some point. It could be a wildfire that cuts off, and because we're at the southern tip of the county, you are further away from access to food. It could be a variety of different items. Tsunami, it could be an apartment fire that goes through an urban area. So it could be a variety of items or disasters, all of which leads to a lack of access to food.
And how much food are we talking about?
1,000 meals that will be held in that container.
Okay. And what kind of food is it?
These are nutritious meals that follow My Plate guidelines. They're frozen individual meals. They are prepared using vocational training programs. They are made with, in part, excess edible food donated by manufacturers, processors, et cetera. So there's an element of SB 1383 compliance that goes along with this. It's one of those win-win-win scenarios. but this food is also culturally acceptable, and in some cases, even medically tailored, meaning there'll be low sodium, or if we find that there are residents that have diabetes, they now have access. And just to give it some context, the reason this is important is typically it will take FEMA or Red Cross several days to get into certain areas. This gives access to residents to food immediately.
Give me an example of that type of food. What would it be?
Carne asada with rice and vegetables, roast chicken with potatoes. So again, if you follow My Plate guidelines, there's protein, there's grains, there's vegetables, there's starch. Each meal has that.
And how is it packaged?
It's in an individual container, a tray, vacuum sealed, so that extends the shelf life. It allows us to hold the product for up to a year. Month mark is when we start to rotate that inventory out. It's not one mass rotation. It's just as the production date hits that 10-month mark, we start moving those meals out and rotating that inventory. And that's where we say those meals can then be used for nonprofit purposes, but it is ultimately in conjunction with the city's goal. In other words, we would never want those meals to have an adverse effect on the city.
Yeah, and how many people did you say you could feed with this?
10,000 meals to start, minimum.
Okay.
We anticipate the ability to ramp up and actually have additional meals as well.
How did you assess the need for people in San Clemente to need this kind of food as opposed to some other area?
Yeah, we were very lucky. We were able to, we were not fettered in any way or restricted by the county, so we were able to look at logistically where is that need. And that need geographically, as I mentioned, is San Clemente is on the tip of the county, so theoretically it could be cut off with only Pendleton being an access point. Also, we have to the east of us, including Pendleton, an area that could be the victim of a wildfire. And we saw this in East Orange County, in Tustin, Orange, Cleveland National Forest, where if wildfires go through, it's difficult for residents on that eastern part to be able to access food. So again, it can be urban, it could be rural, but also again, because of the location of San Clemente in the southern tip, we thought it was an ideal spot.
And if, let's say you envision this thing, this incident, let's call it an earthquake, because that's the worst thing I could think of. You think all the roadways would be blocked off so no one could get to any kind of food point
Yeah.
other than San Clemente?
Yeah, we experienced it already in Northern California, in Santa Rosa, where the 5 freeway was blocked. We experienced it on the 101 in Ventura, where the floods blocked off major arteries. So it has happened before, and part of what we're supposed to be doing as a collective public group is to be able to identify and predict or prepare for the worst-case scenario. In this case, it does so.
Where's the funding coming from?
The funding is federal funds that were earmarked for Orange County. Orange County wanted those funds to be used for this emergency preparedness or emergency meal program.
And how much how long does the funding last?
The funding
many
is.
years?
Yeah, the funding was one-time $2 million for the first phase, which is confirmed. Those meals are available, but we also have that ability to continue to rotate those meals based on the SB 1383 compliance work we do throughout the county. So they're made at a series of a network of repurposing kitchens, all permitted food establishments throughout Orange County, some in South Orange County, that are making those meals. So there is the ability to continue to replenish. Ideally, we think there will be an expansion of the number of units to upwards of 15 throughout the county. But we chose San Clemente as one of the homes of the first 5.
And where, you said the funding coming from the federal government, how many years funding? You said 1 year?
It was a one-time, this is a
One-time.
one-time opportunity to invest in those first 5 units.
And this was funded through the county government?
Yes.
And then what happens after this 1 year if it's not re-upped?
Well, the units are still in place, so we only have to replenish the meals, which has ongoing funding and capability because there's very low food cost with it. So we already have the funding to continue to replenish the meals. The funding was to allow the development and installation of the solar-powered freezers.
Okay.
So that's a one-time expense.
And do you know where that is going to be placed
Yes.
at?
Yeah, we identified the city yard. Excuse me if I don't remember the street name, I apologize, but it's part of that city yard that is not being used for anything. There's actually brush there that we will clear away, put down a pad so that the unit is level.
Have you already put down the pad?
No, we have to
Put
wait
any
until we get
equipment
approval.
there?
There's nothing there now.
Okay. Yeah, what other cities are participating in this program?
Santa Ana is participating through Santa Ana Unified School District. The City of Orange is participating. City of La Habra is participating. And now it's either Garden, we're on the border of Huntington Beach and Westminster. So those are the 5 cities. And again, if you look geographically, we're looking at outlining areas of the county. La Habra on the northeast, Orange on the east, on the northeast, La Habra on the northwest, and then Huntington Beach, Westminster on the southwest.
Okay. All right, those are essentially my questions.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have all of those cities approved this program?
We're just waiting for final approval on Westminster, Huntington Beach, because it's going through school district.
Okay.
So
The
that's,
other 4 have?
and yes, La Habra is already approved, installed already, so that one's already installed. Orange is already approved and installed, that's on the site of a middle school. And then Santa Ana is through the school district, that is approved, waiting for the site.
Okay. Any other questions while he's here? Okay.
I appreciate it.
And
We do have one speaker card, Mayor.
speaker card, another speaker card, okay. Okay, well, here's speaker
Okay,
card.
Amanda Q?
So I just wanted to speak about a couple of things about the site. It's my understanding it's on unstable land. That's why they moved the animal shelter that was there years ago. And also, it is in the tsunami evacuation route. So if a tsunami comes, what's going to happen with that, or a major earthquake, that's going to be unstable, and it'll there's concerns regarding that. However, when I was speaking, I was listening to the gentleman. How about food with a longer shelf life, like canned foods, powdered eggs, powdered milk, rice and beans, desal kits, water, canned tuna, canned spam, MREs, because these frozen things or the foods that we're saying that. Carne asada or whatever, or chicken with potatoes. I mean, if this is an emergency situation, we need, the basic essentials, right, to get us through this. So I think I'm really concerned about that. But I think, definitely having food with a longer shelf life, I think it's more appropriate. And thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your concerns. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, do we have discussion or any motions on this item?
I'll say I think this is a great idea. This sounds fantastic and a public good to, if there's an emergency. I lived up in Santa Barbara when there was a landslide on the 101, and we were cut off. We didn't have anything like this. This is a great opportunity. You never know. You never know what the emergency is going to be. You never know how severe it's going to be. This is a way to prepare for that worst-case scenario.
I'd like to speak to it. I'm going to speak against it. I think that what's happening here is it's another federal program that we're paying for. I don't think it's a particularly compelling program, given the fact that the kind of food that's being saved is really for distribution on a monthly basis into the community. And I'm glad that we'll have some impact. But the people I know in San Clemente, in fact, the people I know from church have a year's supply of food in their closet. And I know that I have a supply of food. I don't think most of the people here in San Clemente are going to need a frozen food package from this unit because people here are rational and they think and they're prepared well in advance. So what we're doing here is we're taking federal government money, and it's always great. The federal government comes up with thousands of ideas of how to spend our taxpayer money with programs that sound good and feel good, and taking away responsibility from us as individuals to care for ourselves and care for our family and care for our community. I don't think the federal government needs to step in here. I think we could all do it ourselves. I think the people of San Clemente are responsible enough to take care of themselves. I think they're prepared for these emergencies. Everybody that lives here knows that there's an earthquake possible. This is just another federal funding program, in my view. This is my personal view, and you guys don't have to accept it, but I just don't think we're paying for this, and there'll be another program next year with either free phones or free internet or free something that we're going to pay for that sounds like a great idea, and they are great ideas, but I don't think that I can support this program.
Thank you. Any other
I'll-
comments or
I'll-
discussion?
I'll just respond to that. I think it's great that you are prepared. That is fantastic, and very fortunate that you are in the circumstances that you can be prepared. There are thousands in this town that don't have that luxury. And in emergency strikes, they have enough food to get them for a week. Emergency strikes, some of them have enough food to get them through a day. And yes, there are residents in our town that, yes, they are prepared, fantastic, wonderful. We can't assume that every resident in this town is, and we need to be looking out for them as well. When that disaster strikes, we don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know who's going to be impacted by it. We need to be prepared, period.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, it's, the last thing. Yeah, when an emergency happens, no matter what that is, first thing we look for is evacuation, whether it's a school or whatever. And I think it would be helpful, the ones I've been involved in, is the last thing that they take care of is food. They set up cots and blankets. But I think it would be nice if, say, we had an emergency and we put people in the high school for whatever reason, if they were displaced, that we could go down and we could bring up a couple of hundred meals to throw them in and get them going. And again, I'll just reiterate that we're not entering into a long-term contract that we can't get out of if we look at this and say, this just doesn't seem to work right, whether it's the distribution or whatever. And we have a model from other cities that are doing it, at least. We have a start. And if it doesn't work out, we give them the notice, and in 60 days, we're done with it. How many times do you come with programs that you have such an easy way out? So that's all.
I just want to, I agree with you. It's a great program. It works. Anything free, it works. I mean, if we gave everybody free phones, which I guess we do already, it would work, and everybody would love it. But what we're doing is we're encouraging the federal government to spend more money on projects that I don't think, if you look at the scheme of things that the federal government could do, that this is the top priority. So that's.
And I agree with you 100%, but I think that ship has sailed about as far as the government money. This is a chance, at least for us, to show something for it.
Well, I support this. I think we should have dispensed with this in 5 minutes, the last meeting. Great program, Mike, great presentation. You're very, very concise and direct in your answers. I want to give credit to the Public Safety Commission, or committee, because, the situation is, we're full of disasters where everyone goes, oh my gosh, we should have been prepared for this. Why didn't someone think about that? Why didn't we cover this base? You were proactive in thinking about this, which is particularly pertinent to our isolated community down here. So I'm completely, fully supportive of this, and hope someone will make a motion and we'll move on.
I move that, did you have anything? Okay.
Well, I would, just one comment. The program reminds me of a little bit about a massive federal food project in the book of Exodus, where Joseph stored 7 years' worth of food and saved the entire nation of Egypt and the entire Israeli population. So
That's a
I think
spirit.
occasionally these things are necessary. So I'll support your motion when you make it.
All right, I will move to adopt Resolution 2330. Do I need to read the rest of
No,
it?
you
All
do
right,
not.
Fantastic.
Okay, and is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion is Enmeyer, second is Leffler. Councilmember Enmeyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Leffler.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Aye.
Cabral.
I'm a no.
And I'm an aye. It passes. There we go. Okay. On to
Item G.
G.
Sorry, I just wanted to pull this really quickly, talking about the T Street Bridge. I was down there Sunday. The bridge itself there's a lot of these rust marks coming down on the side of it. It's an eyesore, if I'm honest. It looks like the cage that encloses it from the rust from the seawater, the rust has dripped down. It's looking very bad. Do we have, is that part of the, this seems like it's in completion, but I was hoping that that would have been addressed in this, but I just wanted to speak, ask you to speak more on that.
So the reason these problems occur is all concrete cracks. When it cracks and it's near the ocean, salt water gets into the rebar starts to rust, it expands to 2 to 3 times its natural size, and then it busts concrete spalls off, and those can fall to the ground if someone's around. It's not a good thing. So this project was to go in and tamp a lot of the concrete, get those loose pieces off, find the rebar that's rusted, replace it, and then patch the concrete. We have a bigger project probably in a couple of years to come back and do more of this resurfacing. So we're not going to paint it or probably fix some of the unsightly things that you see, but it will be structurally sound.
Is there any plan to work on the appearance of it at all?
In a couple of years.
Couple of years.
I mean, we can move that up if that's the desire, but we're going to need a lot more money than what we're working with on this contract.
Just to make the point on that too, it's not ADA compliant. So if we did do major repairs, then we would have to, the cost would be exponential given the additional compliance we would need to meet.
And we might hope to get like a federal grant to make it ADA compliant.
Yeah, and luckily, we're asking the federal government for a lot of things these days. And Councilor Monica too. Food we didn't need to ask. Okay. Thank you, State Attorney.
Yeah, I'll move to adopt resolution.
Any other questions of staff? Oh, we have Kyle here. Okay, go ahead.
All right, I'll move to adopt resolution number 2335.
Second.
Motion is Enmeyer, second is Noblock. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Okay, so moving on to unfinished business, item 9A, update on the plan to move temporary pickleball courts from San Gregorio Park to Richard T. Steed Memorial Park and approval of a construction contract with Compan Incorporated.
I thought this was done already.
I thought the pickleball courts were finished.
Yeah.
Okay, last week. Thank you, Samantha. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, very brief. I don't have a presentation, but I did just want to reiterate that this is the staff's best effort to expedite a contract to get temporary pickleball courts built at Richard T. Steed Memorial Park. Again, the council reviewed and considered temporary court location at its previous meeting and determined that the lot adjacent to the skate park would be the best expedited method to get that project built. So this is a contract, and with council's approval this evening, it will allow the city manager then to finalize the full contract. What you're seeing tonight is the sales proposal, and that's the best we could get just to get ahead of this again, to really expedite the process. So Compan is a company we've used before through Playgrounds. They're on the state contract program, so we've covered our bases in terms of the purchasing policy. And this is a not to exceed $1.2 million at this point, and then includes some contingency as well. As we get a little deeper into the final numbers of this, staff will continue to be very conscientious about the spending, whether that's some of the fixtures like benches and items like that. If we can scale back to save costs, we will always do our best effort to do so. And then if this is approved, we're also requesting that upon build-out of these 8 temporary courts, we would look to close down the pickleball courts at San Gregorio Park in conjunction with this reopening of this site. And that's all I have on my report. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Samantha here?
I just have one quick question. Samantha, the compact company that you're contracting with, Compan, excuse me, is that the same company that was doing the grading work at Casa Romanica? Is that a different company?
No, this company specializes in playgrounds and play equipment.
Okay, different company completely.
Different
Okay,
company
Thank you.
completely,
That was
yes.
my question. Thank you.
And do we have a timing, earliest possible date that these 8 courts might be completed? I know you can't predict that completely now, but what one might be hoping for.
Our estimate is about 5 months. Most of that's actually going to be manufacturing. We have to get the materials and the supplies. But again, because this Compan has a really innovative pickleball court system, that's it's a stand-up program, and that's going to make it quick. It's manufactured. They already have the specs on everything. It's just putting the order in.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do we make it 3 months?
They know the urgency of this. Our sales reps that we work with know that this is very urgent. We will do everything we can to push this forward, to include having the city manager sign the contract if it's approved this evening, as quickly as possible.
What's the biggest part of the delay?
It's ordering, the manufacturing of the actual equipment. So we're going to place our order, they're going to go out to manufacturing, it will be shipped in. And then the install's very quick timing, but I estimate they're probably about 10 weeks out for manufacturing from start to finish. I think, if 5 months is a good time frame, if we really wanted to push it, we could probably get that down to, I would say, 15 weeks to shave some time off of that. But we want to manage expectations that there can be delays in manufacturing or shipping. Parts can come in that are broken and they have to be resent back out. So there's just some elements that we want to be cognizant of that can come up through a construction process.
So these aren't pre-manufactured?
No, it's a system that Compan has developed that basically is kind of a stamp of a pickleball court, if you will, that dictates that this is the fencing, this is what your lines will look like, this is how it can fit. It's almost modular-like, so it's not that kind of a prefab facility, if you will. It is still, we have to pour.
Pre-designed.
Correct, it's pre-designed, which cuts a lot of the time off of a construction project.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions for Samantha?
No questions. I just want a brief comment. This was an emergency deal, so you went off the emergency list of people that are ready. But I want to make sure that in deals even like this, we have a local preference for our local contractors. I know this person's not local, but I just want to encourage our management to be sure that even on these emergency, whether it's the grading at the CASA or wherever, that we can at least consider the local contractors. That's my only comment.
Do we have any comments?
We do have 3 speaker cards. Concerned resident, followed by Susan Ambrose, followed by Amanda Q.
I swear, I think I'm dreaming. This is great. So by my calculations, it was 1,709 days ago that the city opened pickleball courts at San Gorgonio Park. This was done without a CEQA, noise pollution study, traffic impact study, or any allowance for adequate on-site parking. In doing so, the city made Via San Gorgonio an unsafe street for families and residents, and it took away residents' peaceful enjoyment of their home. None of you were on council at that time, but 2 of you have known for a very long time that those courts were installed by violating state laws and city codes. Had Mr. Hall been our city manager and Ms. Mitchell been our city attorney, this would have never happened. And if it was not for them, we would not be here where we are tonight with this contract. So it seems that tonight is your opportunity to make things right. Approve the contract, but please require a completion clause. Because if we don't have a completion clause, there's no guarantee of any time constraints to get this done. And for no other reason, you need to approve this contract because you will no longer have to listen to this old lady at every single council meeting. And I'm sure that alone is worth your approval. Thank you.
Okay, next
Susan
comment.
Ambrose.
Susan, there you are.
Good evening, City Council members and staff. I appreciate very much the discernment that you use in making your decisions. And after all, you've had many opportunities tonight to do so. I'm going to ask you to do that yet again with this comment on unfinished business with San Gorgonio, and it is item 4, authorize and direct staff to close the pickleball courts at San Gorgonio Park. That's beautiful. As soon as construction of the temporary facility at Steed Park is completed. Now, I'm looking at a very healthy board up here, a panel of distinguished people who probably have had home projects before, or and if you didn't succeed in them, you hired a contractor. When you hired a contractor, you had a start date and an end date. And if you didn't have an end date, you got in trouble and you had to pay much more money to get your project completed. I know that you're not raising your hand to agree with me, but I bet most of you have had that opportunity if you've lived in America. At any rate, my whole point is there must be a goal to meet. There must be an end. You don't start a project without thinking in your mind, using great discernment of when this should be finished. And then you should track it all the way along. And that person, whether it's your company that you've used in the past, or whether it's somebody else, they have a track record. You have in your policies and your contracts. And I know that City Manager Andy Hall knows this too. You keep track of the progress that you've made. You've got a timeline to finish, and that's what you want. You don't want San Gorgonio people up there thinking, what? They said they were going to do this. When is the temporarily fixed now? I mean, when do you stop? Thank you very much. Please do, with great discernment, mandate a completion date on this contract. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda Q.
I just want to reiterate that I support a completion clause and make sure to include that pickleball courts should be closed at the termination of this at San Gorgonio Park, just like they did at San Luis Rey Park. And just to remind the public that there was no parking studies at Steed Park. And that should have been done for the master plan for parks at Steed Park. So I think that it's imperative that the San Gorgonio pickleball courts are closed when these temporary courts are finished and there is a completion date. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And that's our last comment.
That's our last comment.
So any discussion?
I got just a question, and I think completion dates are good. Usually, I think when contractors are pinned down to that, they usually double their length of time they can do it. But with a completion date, do cities ever do bonuses for finishing early, like they did in the freeways up in San Francisco when the earthquakes hit? And they got those freeways done like quickly. I don't know how feasible that is, but it seems like you get a set time and then you offer them some kind of bonus for, every month they get done sooner. I'll bet those things would fly up.
I like that idea. I would say, and I think you alluded to this, they're not in complete control, right, of when they get the manufacturing materials. So it's kind of hard to tell Compound you have to finish by this date when they have contractors that they go to get the materials that they have no control over. That may take longer than anybody anticipates.
Or the site conditions. We don't know what they're going to, the first shovel in the ground, they might hit something that shuts the job down for a year, so they can't be held responsible for that kind of thing.
Right. So that, another thing that's out of their control is the conditions on the ground. So I completely appreciate those comments, but maybe it would be better to use encouragement, but not a hard and fast deadline that blows the whole project up. Yeah.
Like a penalty if they're not completed on time?
Well, I don't know about a penalty because, again, these things aren't in their control,
Well,
right?
they do have, in the sales proposal, there is a 15 to 17-week product delivery time frame. So once the product is delivered, we could impose a time frame for completion of construction. Just a thought.
Any thoughts from staff on a deadline once they get those materials from their supplier?
I have no reason to think that they can't get this done in a timely. This is not a hard project. It's pouring some pickleball courts and putting some netting in. It shouldn't be that difficult of a project. If 5 months isn't fast enough, we can ask them, can you do it faster, and trying to get them to do it faster, but, you know.
Would you have that as a part of the contract or just sort of unofficial?
If you want to give them an incentive, disincentive clause, we can put that in there. I've never seen one for this type of work. Yeah, they do it on big highway projects because you have, 200,000 people going through an interstate a day. That's a lot of people's time and money, so that's why they do it for big highway contracts.
Yeah, and this
I've
is-
never seen one for a pickleball court.
This is not a big highway contract. This is a firm that specializes in pickleball courts. This is what they do. They do it well. I think they would love the opportunity to make $1.2 million if we said, we want the thing done in 4 months. Do you want the contract or don't you?
But again, they don't hold that, they don't control that.
They can, you may be right and you may not be right. They have the ability, if they're in the pickleball business and they've got other contracts, they have the ability to get this work done. If you don't ask, you don't get, is my philosophy. And quite frankly, someone that's in the selling business who says, I want your $1 million, they'll jump through a hoop. If you don't hold the hoop up, they won't jump through it. If you hold the hoop up and say, we want this done in 4
But
months,
here's
can you
another thing that
perform?
might happen. They walk away from the contract because they don't like that term and we're back to square one.
No one's going to walk away from $1 million. I can't
Well,
believe
no, it's not $1 million. It's $1 million they might lose. It's going to be part of it if they can't meet a deadline that they have no control over, so.
Don't ask, you don't get.
We're arguing over a month. I know that this is really important. I know that people are really passionate about pickleball, and I know we have a concerned resident who has dealt with this, unfortunately, for too long. I think we're getting outside the scope of, finding a new budgetary process for this to speed it up by a couple weeks. I think we can ask and encourage. I don't think this is necessary to add stipulations for a matter of a couple weeks.
That's a good point. And maybe, isn't this like the first phase, which might be more? I mean, hopefully this contractor will come in and do a good job, hoping they're going to get the rest of the pickleball courts.
Right, when we do
Hopefully, maybe that'll be an incentive.
And just to address some of the comments, staff does this. What you're asking for, staff does. They stay on contractors. We encourage them. We hold them accountable. They have to keep coming back and doing updates like this. So this is already part of the system. I don't know if you didn't think that was happening. It's happening on all of our projects, and especially this one. So I'm going to defer to staff on, for myself in terms of how they've laid out the contract. Yeah.
I have a different matter. We're talking about 5 months as the outer, a reasonable time period which they'd be able to get it done. What about if we flip the pickleball, set November 7th, 5 months as the closing of the other pickleball court, and then that puts the pressure on you, and it puts the pressure on the pickleball community that will come and talk to you about getting it done because they will not otherwise have a pickleball court. I'm actually thinking that, we've had one person that's borne all the responsibility of this, and I would, I'm actually thinking about giving them a fixed date at which point the pickleball courts close at saying,
I could support a motion.
I'm going to make that motion.
Your motion is everything in the staff recommendation plus the end date of November 7th?
Yeah.
Okay.
For the close date of San Gregorio pickleball.
Yes.
For the closed date of Santa Clara.
Mr. Mayor, so if I can just clarify, that would be a change to section 5 of the resolution that's proposed.
5.
Instead of being,
As soon as it goes to November.
as soon as construction is complete, to be,
Oh, you would add 5. I'm sorry, I was looking for a 5 on here.
no,
There is five.
or November
Oh, and
7th, whichever's earlier. Is that?
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. And you're seconding that?
Yep.
Motion? Okay. Okay. Is there any other motions?
I'd make a friendly amendment for December 7th, just because it's in a range of 5 months. If it's 5 months and a couple weeks, it just gives them a little bit more time as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that thought. It does give the contractor more time, but, you know, the people at San Gorgonio have suffered for years with this noise. We gave remedy to the other park. These people have suffered long enough. I think this is an appropriate, I can't see short, if anything, maybe shorter.
I think November 7th is the compromise date.
Okay, I will
Make a
make
comment?
I will make oh, I'm
Can I
sorry.
sorry. So we're not actually approving their contract tonight. We still have to get that together and bring it back to council. Can we make these deadlines?
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt, but the resolution does approve the contract in a form acceptable by the city attorney. So
Okay,
if
okay.
they moved, if they adopted this resolution, it could be signed as soon as staff had it together.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, I will make I'll make a substitute motion that we approve the staff recommendation, that we defer to the expertise of our staff, and that we allow for the contingencies that are outside of the control. I hate to be in a situation where, for unforeseen circumstances outside of everyone's control, this project doesn't get done by November 7th, and nothing staff could have done changed it, and we have a situation where we have no availability of pickleball anywhere in the city in terms of at our parks, at least at the scale that the folks need it. So my motion is to accept the staff recommendation as written.
I'll second that.
Okay. So first is the substitute motion, right? Okay. So the substitute motion is to accept the staff recommendation as is. Councilmember Ermeyer?
Aye.
Leffler?
No.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Nowak?
No.
Okay. And I am an aye. That fails. Okay. And we move to the other motion, which is the staff recommendation plus with the modification that that Sanji is finished not at the completion of the temporary facility, but on the hard date of November 7th. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Councilmember Enmeyer.
Aye.
Leffler.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Aye.
And I'm a no, and it passes.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, item 10A, approval of the local roadway safety plan, LRSP.
And I think we wanted to process this as a public hearing as well. Did we not? I thought we conducted as one, yes. Okay. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Oh, before we do that, let's take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, that we both had at the same time, so oh, wait.
Okay, now I'm going to open the public meeting for item 10A, approval of. oh, sorry.
Approval of the local roadway safety plan.
Right. And first, we'll have staff presentation. Yes.
Good evening, Mayor Duncan and fellow council members. I'm Zach Ponson. I'm your Assistant City Engineer. Tonight with me, I have Ryan Kim, our Senior Traffic Engineer. We're available for questions, and I am going to offer to do you one of two things. I have a 2 or 3 minute presentation with some slides, or I could just give you a 1 minute verbal update of it and just open it up to questions. So if you,
I'm in favor of the 1 minute. 1 minute sounds
1
good.
minute? Okay.
We've read all your material.
correct. And so since
Thoroughly
the
prepared.
staff report's pretty thorough on this, and what I will say is, and so what I will say on the LSRP is it's a new tool that cities are using, and it helps us get grant opportunities. And so in this program, you will see, and it was discussed at Planning Commission, there was several sites that the study did look at. You're not approving those projects. You're not funding those. We're not acknowledging that they're safety hazards. They are simply examples of how the tool can be used. Some of those, they even include recommendations on those 8 sites. Staff will look at those sites and then develop future projects off of them, and we'll be able to do grant applications for them. Once this resolution hopefully passes tonight, we will turn it over back to Caltrans, and we will receive back the funding that helped pay for our consultant to do this study. With that, I'm available for any questions.
Any questions of Zach or Ryan?
None.
No? Okay, does anyone want to make a, well, wait a minute. First of all, we have public comments.
We do not have any public comments.
Okay, I'm going to close the public meeting. Do we have any discussion or motions?
I will make a motion to adopt resolution number 2345.
Any second?
Second.
Second is, motion is Henmeyer, second is Cabral. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No, okay.
Next item on the agenda is traffic calming on Avenida Presidio between Cali Cortez and North La Esperanza, and finding the project categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, under Class 1 existing facilities, 14 CCR Section 15301 of the state CEQA guidelines.
Good evening, Mayor Duncan and fellow council members. I'm Zach Ponson, your Assistant City Engineer. Tonight with me, I have Ryan Kim, our Senior Traffic Engineer. I have a quick.
You guys seem like the last crew we just had.
Right. I have a really quick presentation on this one, and I'll open it up to questions. As you can see on the location map, we're looking at the segment in between La Esperanza and Calle Cortez. We have received some complaints over the years from the senior housing development that's kind of right in the middle of this section. It hasn't qualified for traffic calming in the past, but staff has done things like put up pedestrian warning signs. We will note in our study, this area won't qualify for speed bumps or crosswalks, such as what was kind of requested by the seniors. It's too steep, there's too many curves. So one of the things that staff can do is install electronic speed feedback signs that'll warn you if you're speeding. We're also looking at adding some edge lines, which focus your eyes a little bit narrower on the road and are shown to slightly slow people down. And like I said, we already have some pedestrian warning signs out there. Then while we were out there, we noticed their driveway exit was very hard to see coming out of that driveway exit. So we're going to be proposing some red curbing with that too.
To do what, I'm sorry,
Red curbing near their drive approach exits, because due to them being on the inside of the curve, the line of sight getting out of there is very difficult. The traffic calming itself technically didn't meet the speeding criteria, but due to the special circumstance of the senior housing and the kind of the slow reaction time of the residents trying to cross the street, we do have an ability to give them a couple extra points that did push them over that threshold. So staff is recommending the installation of electronic speed signs in the downhill direction, which we believe should help traffic in the area. And we'll also request the Sheriff's Department to increase their presence in the area. With that, staff's available for any questions.
Are we budgeted for those speed signs in our presentation?
Yes, we are. Actually, we have about 15,000 left in this current fiscal year for traffic calming.
Those signs are about 25 grand a piece,
About
aren't they?
15 to 20,000 on the low
So
end for them.
you're okay
And so that's about what we have left. If it does go over that, we'll be able to dip into next year's 80,000 to cover any extra. Yeah.
Quick question, while you're working on this, is there any room for a bike lane on this road?
Not a dedicated bike lane. On something that's, a street that narrow, we won't be able to get dedicated bike lanes. One of the things that we look at with our bicycle and pedestrian master plan is looking at dedicated routes for what's called a Class 3 bike lane, where you're putting in those sharrows. And so one of the things we'll be doing in the future is adding a lot of sharrows per our bicycle and pedestrian master plan through a lot of the streets in Broadmoor to get kids hopefully to the high school through that back route a little safer. I don't know off the top of my head if this street is marked as one of those, but if it's,
But not separate bike lanes.
it won't be a separate bike lane, no. To do that, it has to have a much wider curb-to-curb width. You'd have to eliminate all the parking to kind of do that.
I'd only add, I had the opportunity to go see it with our city manager, and I think these people are going to be delighted. They've been trying for maybe 8 years to get this done. It's not only a senior community, it's one of the few senior communities, it's also disability. And so most of the people, I think, that we met with at least, were in their 80s, and even some older, and they park on that street, and that's a downhill road on a curve, and when they have to cross the street, it causes them a lot of problems when people are speeding by at, over the speed limit. So I think this is great, and I commend you for your work.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Any discussion or motions?
I'd like to move to approve item 10B, the traffic calming on Avenue Procedural.
Second. Okay, motion is Cabral, second is Zenmeyer. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're done with oral
Okay.
communications part 2.
Oral communications, part 2, we have one speaker card, Aaron Washington.
I'll be quick.
So earlier, I was just trying to comment on, first of all, congratulations, that's good that you listened to the people at North Beach and putting the time for closing the beach at 10. Mark, I learned the hard way. My son, who's 19 now, my youngest, the state of California, the curfew's 10 unless they're coming from work. And so with that, most kids should be at home already. And if you're 18, you're treated like an adult. So that was one of the answers I wanted to make sure that you understood. I didn't figure it out until he was 17. He was going to be 18 in 1 week. And he was in San Margarita in his car, and he had to park until I came and got him. So that's all I wanted to add. Thanks.
Thank you.
You?
I didn't know that either.
Okay, that's the only comment there?
That is the only comment.
Okay, future
So-
agenda items?
Yes, I actually would like to look at agendizing the moving of the oral communications part 2 and combining it with oral communications part 1. There's some history of why we have oral communications part 2, and I don't think it necessarily fits into where we're at today. So I would just like to look at how we organize our agenda itself.
Okay, so I think you're saying not having a separate oral communications part 2, but having it as an overflow for oral communications part 1, potentially?
Yes, if we need more time in oral communications part 1, like we did today, we can just extend that time. I don't know that we need it's necessary to have
Okay,
oral
so
communications. part
you
two.
would like to agendize a discussion of that oral communications, of whether we need the second oral communications, okay.
I'd second that. And as part of that evaluation, I'd also, one of the things that bothers me the most is we have early on in the meeting, the staff communications. And we don't know if it's a 2-minute presentation or like it was today, 2 20-minute presentations. We don't even know it's on the agenda. And I would like it to be identified before we get to our meeting so that we know that there's a presentation and what it's about, because I want to know.
Okay, so will you take the friendly amendment to discuss both as part of our agenda, oral communications and staff report, staff presentations, or what is it?
I think we call it staff communications,
Staff
but we had two of them that took up quite a
And
substantial amount of
And
time.
they were important items, too. that
Very
would've been-
important, but I would have liked to know before the meeting what they were.
Okay, so the motion is to discuss whether we need the second oral communications and what we can do to clarify staff communications.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to add to the motion in terms of adjusting or clarifying our agenda process? Okay, so you're seconding that, his and adding?
To agenda.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you accept the amendment?
Yes, I
Okay.
accept it.
All right. Any others? Okay. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Agendize.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and we need a third. Okay,
We
so we
do
just
need
need
a
a third.
third.
Okay, left Thursday, a third.
If we need a staff report, do we really need a staff report on that protocol?
Yeah, let's have staff prepare something that might add some context to why we have the second oral communications perhaps, and how it might function in other cities, and also more information on what is meant by staff communications and whether there can be some clarification about what's going to be on that. And I think we have council direction for that. So.
Okay.
Yes. I have something on homeless subcommittee for a motion, but would you prefer I talk about it at 13B or to talk about it with future agenda items?
Do you want to agendize something related to that?
I don't know if it needs to be agendized or not,
Okay,
but.
so let's wait then to
Okay.
go through your report. Anybody else on?
Yeah, can I ask a quick question here? Because
Yes.
it kind of got steamrolled over. Where do I suggest that we send the issue about the model of park rangers? Suggest that we send it to the Public Safety Committee to take a look at? Where do I do that?
Commissions and committees? Well, I guess it'd be reports there.
Council member items.
I would recommend that as an item for agendized new items.
So if you discuss that in the future?
You wanna
Yes.
Okay.
agendize that?
So you're asking to agendize that?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm
so he's
asking.
to-
I'll second that for for
Okay.
discussion.
And I'll make a third on that to the
Yeah.
extent we need it, so. This is when, Rick?
Oh,
There's the
thank
answer
you.
to your
Hey, my
question.
timing was perfect. My alarm went off and I spoke up.
Yeah, that's right. You woke up and you said something. Just kidding. You got to brass this guy up in his first meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other future agenda items? Hearing none, we will move on to reports. The first one is commissions and committees. So this is commissions and committees that we are on, not council subcommittees, but outside committees and commissions. Anybody have any reports?
Just say that CASA met the California Animal Shelter and talked about our budget. We're looking at creating a 5-year capital improvement plan. And also, over the summer, on Mondays, kids and adults have the opportunity to come and read to the canines in the shelter.
Okay, fun.
Just shut up.
Nice, yes. Love it. Okay, any other commissions and committees? Nope. Okay. On to council subcommittee updates. Anybody on the subcommittees want to update us? Mark, you can go ahead.
Yes, yeah. So with the homeless subcommittee, I think we're at a point now where we need to start making some direction to our city manager to meet with the other city managers of San Juan, Dana Point, and create a meeting with fellow council members to discuss what we want to do in terms of some sort of regional possibilities to how we address homelessness.
Are you saying you'd like the council members to do that or city staff?
Well, ideally, we could, and can we have 2 council members from each city meet to discuss this? That wouldn't be violating any act. So ideally, we could have 2 council members from each city gather together with city managers to look at what we can do together to address this.
And we're talking about like shelter access primarily, right? Isn't that
Yes,
kind of what we're looking at?
shelter access, regional solutions, yeah.
Victor, you're on the subcommittee too.
Well, I am on the subcommittee, and I wouldn't object to that, but this is going to come up later on when we talk about committees and commissions, because one of the things that I was thinking is, as we reorganize, I think it's the last item on our agenda, is that we reassign some of this activity, and Rick has volunteered, I believe,
Or was voluntold, one of the two.
to replace me on that, but I don't have any objection to it. I think we're at that point. I do have discussions, I do want to have a little bit of discussion, and I don't know if it's this item or the next, where we talk about the role of those committees, but I think it's the next item.
Yeah, okay, yep, let's, yes, we are going to talk about the role of those subcommittees at the next item, but you don't have an objection to
no,
the
no.
kind of meeting, and I don't think we need council direction for that, so we won't need to vote on that.
Okay. Great.
And the subcommittee can make that decision, working with the city manager.
And then there's one more thing. There is a really interesting project going on in Chula Vista right now that I think would be beneficial for all of us to go and look at and to visit. They are creating these pallet homes, these tiny homes, that might be something that would work for our situation. So this would just be an exploratory visit, but I think it might be beneficial for as many of us as we can to go and check it out.
Would it be appropriate, city attorney, for more than 2 council members to go on a visit at one time?
So you could do it as a special meeting, as a site visit.
Okay. Would the public also be
The
invited?
public would be able to come along.
They would have to find their own way down there, I guess, but yeah, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And
There's
those
a great
tiny-
project in Hawaii, too, that I was
Yeah, oh, yeah.
thinking about looking.
Does it line up with our break between meetings?
In anticipation of maybe being on this homeless subcommittee with Mark, I'd also, could we direct the city manager also, I know that came up a while ago, about the possibility of renting or leasing shelter beds. I know Coronado, everybody uses that as their model, and that's what they do. They have agreement with a couple of different shelters, and I don't know how they do it, whether it's, 3 a week or 5, I don't, but maybe City Manager Hall could look into that to see if that's even feasible. That might be something as a bridge for us, again, until we get into something more permanent.
And I think that's something that the subcommittee, if and once you're on it, can discuss, you and Mark, with the city manager.
Okay.
As an option. And then potentially bring back to council, right, if it's a good idea.
Do these Chula Vista units have wheels? I saw an article recently with those tiny homes, they didn't have wheels. Are they mobile, do you know?
They don't have wheels, but they are very easily moved.
And Chula Vista is no Hawaii. I've been there. Border Patrol.
I think you just insulted our city manager.
I think he'd probably have to agree.
Don't they share a beach?
There is a beach. There is a beach. The ocean is there. The harbor's there. Okay, so any other reports from subcommittees? Okay. On to item C here.
So
Council members. This is where we get to the appointments.
So he was on, Councilmember James was on the Marine Liaison. What, do we have?
Just for the public, yeah, we're doing this because Councilmember James obviously is no longer on the council. He was on many of these committees and commissions and boards and subcommittees, and we want to make sure we are properly filled, so we're reviewing that.
Would you like me to go down the list of regional committees that former
Yes.
Councilmember James sat on? So first is Coastal Animal Services Authority.
I'm sorry, speak up, I didn't hear that.
Oh, sure. First item that we need to replace Councilmember James on is Coastal Animal Services Authority, CASA, the animal shelter.
I would prefer to be the main for that.
Okay.
I just went to the meeting of it yesterday. I feel more informed now, but we need an alternate.
What is the title of that? Could you speak a little louder, please?
Sure.
CASA, it's the
CASA,
Coastal
it's-
Animal Services,
Oh,
animal
animal
shelter
service, okay.
that we
Yes.
have with Dana Point. Well, Mark is doing good work having kids read to dogs, so let's have him. I think that's a good idea. Who wants to be the alternate? Anybody else have interest? Is the alternate? No.
I'm the low guy.
Well, there's other low things on here for you to do. We haven't gotten to library yet, so.
I know I'm getting the library.
But, okay, we'll have, without objection, we'll have Councilmember Leffler as the alternate.
As the alternate.
For CASA.
Okay. Chamber of Commerce Economic Development. Jean James was the primary, and Councilmember Cabral was the alternate on that.
Would you like to be primary?
I'd be primary, yeah.
Makes sense.
I'd like the alternate on that, if that's,
Alternate for no block, okay?
Yeah.
That's no problem.
Okay. Historic Preservation Ad Hoc Committee.
Wait, DBA alternate first, sorry.
Oh, pardon me.
Who wants to be the alternate for DBA? Anybody?
I could be the alternate for that.
Okay, Enmeyer, fine.
Historic Preservation Ad Hoc Committee. James was the primary.
I can step into the primary
Okay.
role. Someone would like to be the alternate. I've never met with them, so if someone wants to be primary.
I'll be a secondary.
Okay, there we
All
go.
right.
Okay. And U.S. Marine Corps Liaison was Jean James.
I'd like to take that on. I think it's going to be an important responsibility, given what's happened. I should say that my wife has developed a extraordinary relationship with.
Uh-oh. Stop yourself
there. With the wife.
We got a Marine in here. You don't
With
want to
the
go
wi-
too far.
With the wife of
Oh,
the commandant.
not getting any better.
They've been doing they've got projects together already. So I think it's, we need someone that can mature that relationship, and I'd be willing to do that.
Steve, I know you have interest too, but I think you've been on there before,
I
though.
have been on there before. My son's a Marine. My son-in-law's a Master Sergeant Marine was with NSA at the time. I've got a lot of Marine family contacts and have been liaison in the past, so I'd be interested in that, at the council's pleasure.
Appreciate that. I do think we should give the opportunity to Victor just because he hasn't been on there before, in my opinion, unless somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, as a secondary, can't you be involved?
Well, there is secondary, this is really the liaison.
Oh, the liaison.
And Victor has with your federal connections and your federal history, that would probably be a good opportunity, so.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
support you with
that.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
You'll still have all of your water things. You got all the water.
That's water, that's the
When
most.
an earthquake happens and the water lines grab you, we're glad we got the decel, so, along with the food.
Okay,
So for regional committees, that covers everything that Jean James was on. If there's anything else that you would like to review and make changes to.
You know, since I am taking on a couple more, I'm wondering if anyone would be willing to take on the library task force.
Gee, I wonder who.
Thank you for volunteering, Rick.
Dewey Decimal System, I'm all over it.
Okay, any other changes? Okay. All right, on to the.
And then we
council
wanted to
subcommittee.
discuss subcommittees.
Yeah.
So currently, for Jean James, we have seated on the San Clemente Healthcare Subcommittee and the Transportation Subcommittee.
Did we talk about ending the?
I thought we had
Talked
ended
earlier.
them.
Which
Oh, I'll
one?
put in
The-
for those.
The one that's ending, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought we.
In fact, look, could I ask a
Healthcare for
question,
sure
Mayor?
needs to be terminated.
Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
There are a couple other committees that are not listed on here, and I think a couple of these were, we removed. I mean, I thought we had removed the healthcare, but maybe we
We
didn't.
can do that now if we need to.
And we have a couple others that are not here. Well, the homeless is here, but we have that coastal also,
Okay, this is like subcommittees that
council members are
council
appointed
members
to.
are on usually, although we have.
Correct, correct.
So, yeah, oh, yeah, right, coastal, yeah, coastal, coastal is on here.
Yeah.
The sand coastal that is Mark and Victor's not on.
Yeah.
Although, I don't think we should make any changes there unless you guys want.
No, I'm not thinking about making changes.
You just want to make sure it's listed, okay.
Yeah.
And
And
what was the
I
other one?
truthfully thought that we had eliminated the healthcare subcommittee, but maybe,
With, I think,
Can we eliminate
I
it
think
now?
we can eliminate it now.
Okay.
all right.
Transportation Subcommittee.
I do not recall even being appointed to that one, so I don't know.
That might have,
It was discussed at the February 7th council meeting, and I believe we just agreed to leave it as an active committee. We can certainly,
I don't think we need that one.
I don't think we do either
okay.
We have way too many.
right now. One of the things, I mean, one of the issues I had about these committees right now is, and going through the process of interviewing all these committees and commissions that we have, that we delegate responsibility as citizens to work on issues like homelessness, like the beach, like all the other activities. And what I found is that we're often duplicating their efforts. And sometimes we're confusing them more than helping them. And I'm not certain that, that us designating two people rather than using the support system that we have and the committee system that we have to search on the homeless issue or to search on the criminal committee, that we should be working through them as opposed to designating, because then what happens, I think, is that, oh wait, we do have one other, we have the crime subcommittee that you and I are members of. And I just think rather than than us two working on those issues, that any five of us would work through a committee. You could go to him, Mark could go to him, say, we need
And then
this.
the big issues come before the full council.
The
and
big
full
issues,
public view
yes.
instead of, behind the scenes with the subcommittees. So.
Yeah.
I agree completely. I think the concept of a subcommittee really is to take the authority that's vested in a five-person body, focusing it on two people that really then have the decision-making authority. Started with the toll road issue.
Yeah.
With Gina and Kathy, because they were designated on those committees, two separate boards. But it's sort of morphed into just about every key issue in town to have a subcommittee. So I think staff is charged with the analysis, with the information, and as policymakers, I agree, Victor, I don't think we should duplicate the work and provide potentially conflicting information and confusion regarding where the city's headed. So the whole concept of subcommittees, I just kind of find it a little difficult overall.
Okay, so let's look at it this way. Are there any subcommittees that we want to continue? Because look, even the crime one, I think Rick had the great idea. Let's defer this to the Public Safety Committee to follow up and see how the security is working and whether we need to improve that. We don't need council members, operating separately.
We don't need us to.
Well, you needed it for the specific, very narrow purpose, but that's
Yes.
done now, so.
When it was appointed, it was intended to go long-term, but I agree that the safety committee can do that analysis and provide the expertise that maybe Victor and I can't.
The only
can't
two
provide.
committees that I would see keeping are the design review and the amphitheater, because,
Which is not even the design review.
It's really not a committee,
It's planning commissioners instead of.
Yeah.
Yeah, the amphitheater is really a
amphitheater-
committee. It's a city committee as opposed to a subcommittee of the council, because we're not.
But I don't, that one has never gone anywhere. I'd like to
They were
totally
just-
rethink that.
They were just appointed. They haven't even, I don't even know if they've even
Well,
met
I
yet.
think because of the organization where council members appoint one member instead of selecting it like we do with all of our committees, it's not conducive to, so I say, look, that was a great idea, but it's never gotten off the ground. Let's bring that up when we have our commission and committee discussion about whether it's better to have some citizen committee where people come in and interview like we do for all the other ones instead of just the individual appointments. Because I think having it set up that way was less conducive for them to getting together and getting off the ground. I mean, that was a long time ago we set them up. So I agree that shouldn't be on here either.
So what we would, I guess I'd move, we'd dissolve all the committees except for the design review subcommittee?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, before you make a motion, we do have, I just want to let you know, we do have one speaker card.
Okay.
So,
But before we get to that,
yep.
yeah, go ahead.
I think we need to keep the homeless subcommittee for at least time being. I mean, we might figure out who in what human affairs can do it, but we're talking about meeting with other city managers and city council people. I don't think sending citizens, non-council people in to meet with city managers and possibly other council people is.
Okay.
Well, I would just say that you two could still.
We don't have to call the subcommittee. We can just work on
You
it.
two could still do that.
I'm fine with that.
Well, it's an ad hoc appointment for a specific purpose. It's not a.
Yeah.
Well, whatever you want to call it, it's fine.
Now that we know we have a public comment, let's hear that first before you go any further.
Amanda Q?
Not know.
Well, I'm concerned regarding the Transportation Subcommittee because a couple things happened, right? The 2045 LRTP plan came out, and no one from the city at all mentioned that we could give public comments, and that was a problem there. We also have the draft for the HOV lanes, option 1 and 2, that's supposed to be coming out. So the EIR is going to be concluding that. So I think we do need that because there is a concern regarding the widening of the I-5 freeway and concerns regarding right-of-way, eminent domain, taking of land either with, squire rights because the OCTA doesn't want to say, to use the term eminent domain. So I think that's I think the Transportation Subcommittee should be involved. I approached Councilmember Jean James regarding having a public subcommittee, and it's hard when I was here and they were talking about the general plan amendment regarding the West Corridor, Pico corridor, and no one on staff, the city attorney didn't catch that the 241 Foothill Transportation Corridor ended at Oso Parkway. And what was on that general plan for future conditions was that the FTC 241 toll road went to Cal Camp Road. No, it ends at Oso. The 15-year battle with the TCA and the environmental groups stopped that. So I'm really concerned about that because that was missed by staff. And luckily, I was here. I called up Laura Smith. She said, oh my gosh, no, there's a problem. We emailed Councilmember Jean James, and he was involved with Cecilia Gallardo Daly, and she said, I don't think there's a problem with that. There is a problem with that. It ends at Oso. So the Transportation Subcommittee is very important, and I'm sorry that most of you did not fight the toll road with us. Councilmember Loeffler did, and so I'm just really concerned that, we're doing away with the Transportation Subcommittee when the HOV lanes is that draft, the EIR is going to be coming up pretty soon. And that is a concern regarding the possibility of taking away land. So we have the cooperative agreement, but we have to hold the OCTA accountable and not to expand and go beyond the border of the I-5 freeway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there
Any other
another-
comments?
No additional comment.
Was there another commission that James was on, the Peer Pride Liaison?
I don't think.
I didn't see that on the list, but I know we had appointed him as the liaison, but maybe it was just a individual initiative rather than a council action.
I have a vague recollection. I don't remember putting him on.
I've never seen anything since
It's
I've
not
been
on the
here.
list, I just,
All right.
okay. If it's not on the list, it's not on the list.
Going back to the discussion on the subcommittees to close this out, I mean, I appreciate those concerns. I guess I don't know if you need the subcommittee to get the same point. You contact a council member, they get on it, whether they're on the subcommittee or not. It just seems like we've created a scheme that maybe not as efficient as we had been hoping.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And I think that, particularly on an issue like that, instead of 2 members that you can go to, you have 5 that you can probably go and pitch to and see if any one of the 5 has.
Okay, so on that point again, which ones do we think we may still need nevertheless?
We need the design review.
Yeah, design review, which is planning commission. Coastal, do we think we need at least?
I mean, just until we get the
I-
coastal administrator position filled.
Yeah, I would still say we could beat, but I think once we get it's going to be real soon that we get a coastal commission, and we can still work together on that.
Whether it's.
You want to sunset it when the coastal administrator comes on?
Yeah,
Dissolve it automatically into the mist?
I'm
Sure.
fine with that, but then
Okay.
still, the coastal administrator can work with any of
Yeah,
us.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we'll keep that one around until we get the coastal administrator on board.
And I would like to keep a
With-
homeless subcommittee going, and Rick, I'd be happy for you to join if Victor's okay with that. Just because there is so many different components with this, and,
Okay.
yeah.
So we'll keep that one too indefinitely, I guess, for now.
Mr. Mayor, just one point about subcommittees. If you're going to have a standing subcommittee that goes on in
Yeah.
perpetuity, that becomes a Brown Act.
Sure.
You need to comply with the Brown Act and meet and have open meetings and agendas. So you might want to tailor it to be, I think the intention is to have it be informal meetings.
Yes.
So you may want to put a little more bounds on it in terms of how long it will exist, like for
That's
less
right,
than
that's
a
right.
year, or,
Okay, so let's continue it for another year, and we'll see where it go after that. Okay? And we'll replace Victor with Rick. Victor's fine with that. Do we need to vote on all of this? Whatever we've discussed, or?
Just to review, so design review subcommittee, that's set by our municipal code, so that stays in place. We're removing healthcare subcommittee and transportation subcommittee. We are going to reconsider the Citizens Amphitheater Committee at the June 20th meeting. I'll bring that back as a report. We are maintaining the homeless subcommittee, having it sunset in 1 year. And the sand and beach nourishment stays on track, as well as the public safety
Public
subcommittee.
safety, I think we discontinued.
Discontinued, yeah.
Okay.
So do we need a motion on the 2 to be discontinued?
As long as we have consensus, I'm
We
fine.
have council, corrections, so. Okay.
And then the next item I have is with the appointment to Councilmember Leffler to the city council meeting. That leaves a vacancy on our Public Safety Committee. So with council's direction, I'd like to advertise for the vacancy on the Public Safety Committee and solicit applications for a technical professional with a public safety background to fill the position.
I'll move staff recommendations 1 and 2.
And then just the second part of that recommendation is to schedule prior to our July 18th council meeting at 4 PM, interviews and appointments. Okay.
All right, since Rick bailed on his own committee, then we'll go ahead and take care of this.
I was told by a council member that it took 2 positions to fill his one that he left.
I like that. Wait, is that going to be in the minutes?
No.
Will that be reported by the San Clemente Times?
Motion, we approve recommendations 1 and 2.
Okay.
Yes,
Second is, okay, no block is motion. Second is Cabral.
yes.
All in favor?
All
Aye.
right.
City attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to report except that it's a pleasure to serve the city of San Clemente.
Thank you. Appreciate that. City Manager.
Yeah, I hope we don't have a conflict of interest, but I need to get approval for a contract with Duncan Engineering for
Uh-oh.
structural engineering consulting services. for
Hell of a
Lifeguard
company.
tower replacement, $24,050.
No conflict.
No relation.
No
We checked
conflict.
into it.
No
We
conflict.
checked.
You need a motion on that?
No, just need a reporting. Yeah. Were they a local contractor, Mr. City Manager?
I don't know the answer to that, but it's been made perfectly clear that we are going to check that on every contract. I think that's really important, and that's well stated tonight, and we'll do that for sure. I don't know, but I will report back to you.
Would you like me to read
And I don't know either, so.
Yeah, Chris, what about
Do we
that?
yeah. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to adjourn.
To,
Go ahead.
I move to adjourn to
To-
our next regularly scheduled meeting to take place on June 20th. Closed session will begin at 5 PM. Regular business meeting will begin at 6 PM. The meeting will take place at the council chambers located at 910 Calle Negocio, second floor, San Clemente.
Second.
Motion is Cabral, second is Enmeyer. All in favor? Aye. And it passes unanimously.
Thank you to the 4 people that stayed.